Chapter 15. Tucker stared at the looming hospital in front of him and swallowed his discomfort. Even though his mother had died at home and not in a hospital, he still equated the sterile buildings with her death. Maybe it was the smell of antiseptic that coated the halls, the same smell that masked his mother's scent after she was gone. Or maybe the pale cream walls themselves were to blame. They were the same pale cream color that reminded him of the sheet they had pulled over her face before taking her away. Whatever it was, he hated hospitals. Hated the sight, the sound, and the smell of them. Now, he was being forced to enter one again. His foot took a step as if it remembered how to walk, even while his brain didn't. But it was a slow and halting step. He probably looked as if he was the injured one in need of a hospital, as he crossed the parking lot instead of his father. His father. The man who hadn't been there for Tucker or Whitley since his wife died. So why was Tucker here for him now? Because he felt obligated to? Because he was family? Or was it because of the frailty of life? Perhaps it was a combination of all three. It was one thing to be angry at his father and to allow that to keep him from coming home more often. But it was another thing entirely to not come see him, knowing he could be on his deathbed. Heart surgeries were more common now than they once were, and after searching quadruple bypasses, he knew that most ended well. But it was the ones that didn't end well that had stayed with him. Any surgery had a risk of complication, but he imagined the risks were higher when your chest was cracked open and someone messed around with your heart. Somehow, he made it across the parking lot and through the main doors. A stop at the reception desk earned him a visitor pass and directions to room 312. And then he was in the elevator. As the doors closed, he felt as if they were closing off his air supply as well. His hand pulled at his collar, as if the few inches of give would allow him to breathe easier. Black spots darted across his vision, and his hand found the wall as a wave of dizziness swept over him. Then the elevator chimed, and the doors slid open. The black dots receded, but the pressure did not. Still, Tucker managed to step over the line, allowing the doors to close behind him. The dim hum of conversations and computers floated on the air, sounding muted in his brain. His eyes found the small gray plaque indicating room 312 lay to the left, and he forced his feet that direction. The door to room 312 stood ajar, and he paused to take one final deep breath before pushing the door open. His father appeared still and quiet in the bed, and Whitley sat in a chair nearby with a book on her lap. Her gaze lifted at the sound of Tucker's footsteps, and her eyes widened. "Tucker, you made it," she said as she launched herself out of the chair and across the room. She was thinner than he remembered, but her smile appeared the same. Bright and wide, it showed off her dimple and dispelled all the shadows that had been hanging over his head. "I told you I would try, Whit." Her arms wound around his neck and squeezed as if she was afraid he might be an apparition and disappear if she wasn't holding on to him. "I know, but I didn't think you'd actually show up." Guilt pulled at his heart. It had been too long. He should have come home, even if it was just to see her. "Tucker?" His father's voice was quiet and scratchy, and it ended the brother-sister reunion. Reluctantly, Tucker stepped toward the bed. "I'm here, Dad." "I told her not to call you. I know how busy you are with football and the incident." "It was dropped, Dad. The team gave me community service for it, but it's okay. Thank you." The words reminded him that his father had been too busy to show up and bail him out in the first place. "I'm sorry I didn't come. Big case." "There's always a big case, Dad." Tucker didn't mean for the words to be hurtful, but he saw the emotion flash in his father's eyes nonetheless. "I'm used to you not showing up by now." "Tucker!" Whitley hissed in a shocked voice, but their father held up his hand. "No, he's right, Whitley. I haven't been there for him, for either of you. I've been so consumed with my own grief that I didn't realize you two must have been grieving as well." The conversation with Benji played again in Tucker's head. He'd figured out that night that his father hadn't hated him, but he hadn't realized how much he needed to hear the words until now. Was this what Shelby had meant when she'd discussed forgiving his father? Was this God at work? Shelby. She still hadn't returned his call. He hoped she wasn't too angry with him. Before he could say anything, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out, expecting it to be Shelby. But the number wasn't the one he had called previously. "I'll be right back." Tucker wasn't sure why he felt the need to explain his actions. He was a grown man, and he could take a phone call if he needed to. "Hello?" he said when he crossed the doorway and entered the hall. "Tucker, it's Coach." Dread filled Tucker, coursing like poison through every vein. Coach never called unless there was trouble, and he'd cleared the leave with him this morning. "Hey, Coach, what can I do for you?" The man exhaled a large sigh. "It's about Sunday, Tucker. The man involved with the altercation called the league." "What?" Anger and frustration erupted within Tucker, fighting for control. "Can he do that? I was never charged." "I know, but you know how Image is. It's everything. And so, even though the league knows you weren't at fault, they want to send a message. They're suspending you for Sunday's game." "No, they can't do that. It's the playoffs, Coach. The next game is the wild card game. If we lose, we're out. I can't not play in the possible last game of the season." Frustration edged ahead of anger, and Tucker ran his hand across the back of his neck, massaging the muscles that now stood rigid with tension. "I know it's the playoffs, Tucker, but I can't get you out of this one. It's just one game. If we win it, you'll still be able to play in the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the championship game." "Is there anything I can do?" Tucker asked. This was a nightmare. He'd worked so hard the last few days, and he'd changed. He could feel it. "I doubt it, but you could try doing something to improve your image. Issue a public apology, help out a charity, something to show them that the bar fighter is not the real you." Images of the center and its used equipment flashed into Tucker's mind. He'd brought some footballs already, but what if he supplied a whole new collection of sports equipment? What if he did it at the Christmas party? In fact, what if he got some of the other guys to go with him to the party? It could be a big team event and maybe even boost morale before the big game. "Still no word from him?" Kenzie asked as Shelby massaged her temples. "None, and I just keep getting his voicemail. I don't know why he wouldn't at least call and explain. Now it appears he might not be funding the party after all, and I have no one else to call and no money to buy gifts for the kids." She lifted her eyes to Kenzie's and sighed. "Okay, that does stink," Kenzie said. True to her personality, Kenzie was still trying to find the silver lining in the dark clouds that filled Shelby's vision. "Maybe we can find some leftover things around here?" "That's all we have is leftover things, Kenzie. Leftover things that nobody wants." The ringing of the phone interrupted her pity party, and Shelby forced a smile she didn't feel to her face as she picked up the phone. "South Lake Community Center, this is Shelby. How may I help you?" "Shelby, thank goodness. Did you get my message?" Tucker's voice both irritated her and sent her heart fluttering. Ugh, why did he affect her so much? "No, I saw no message, and I've been trying to call you for hours. Where are you, Tucker? You're supposed to be here helping plan the Christmas party for tomorrow night." "I know, but my dad had a heart attack. I had to fly to San Antonio to see him, and I just got your messages. But I want you to still go ahead with the party for tomorrow." "Tucker, are you sure? The news—"
"I don't care about the news, Shelby. I should have told you sooner about Jude Renfro, and I'm sorry. But he's not important now. What's important is making sure those kids have a Christmas." Was she dreaming? She pinched her arm to make sure she was really awake. Tucker Jackson didn't care about the suspension, and he still wanted to fund the party? She could barely believe it. But though she appreciated his selflessness, it still didn't answer the bigger problem.
"How? I have no money, no decorations, nothing."
"I'm going to wire you some money. Use it to get whatever decorations you need. Also, call the media and see if you can get Sylvie Sanders back out. I'll cover the gifts, and I promise I'll be back tomorrow for the party."
"But your dad?"
"I'll figure it out. You take care of things on your end, and I'll take care of things on mine. 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, we'll show those kids a party they won't soon forget."
"Okay, if you say so." She hung up the phone and turned to Kenzie, still dazed at what had just transpired. Was that Tucker? It was. He said he left a message about today. Evidently his father had a heart attack. Kenzie's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my gosh, is he okay? I don't know. I forgot to ask. Shelby couldn't believe she had forgotten that simple courtesy. She definitely had too much on her mind right now. Anyway, he said he was wiring money and that I was to take care of the decorations and spreading the word. He said he'd take care of the gifts. Well, we better get started then. We've got a lot to do before tomorrow night.